What if the US government turned military lawyers, men and women trained for the battlefield, into courtroom judges deciding who stays in America and who gets deported? Imagine the life-changing fate of millions hanging on the decisions of individuals who have little or no background in immigration law. That's exactly what's on the table with a new Trump-era plan that is raising serious alarms across the country. In this video, we're diving into why military lawyers could soon be sitting on the bench as immigration judges, what that means for justice and democracy, and why legal experts say this could push America into dangerous, uncharted territory. The plan is simple on paper but explosive in impact. The administration has announced that up to 600 military lawyers, mainly from the Army Reserve and the National Guard, could be detailed to the Department of Justice and temporarily serve as immigration judges. They'd step into the system for 179-day terms, which can be renewed. The official justification is the massive immigration court backlog. Across the United States, more than 3.4 million cases are currently pending in immigration courts. To put that into perspective, it means migrants can wait years, sometimes over a decade, just to get their day in court. By pulling in military attorneys, the administration says it's simply borrowing trained professionals to clear the logjam. But here's the catch. Until now, immigration judges were required to have specific qualifications, experience in immigration law or prior judicial service. Those rules have been waived. Under the new arrangement, military lawyers with no prior immigration law experience could be fast-tracked into making life-or-death decisions for migrants, asylum seekers, and families. Not only that, their positions are temporary and dependent on the administration's renewal. That makes them vulnerable to political pressure, critics argue, because if they want to keep their assignment, they may feel compelled to align their rulings with the White House's immigration agenda. That's where the concerns explode. Immigration law is one of the most complex areas in American law. Judges must weigh asylum claims, determine whether deportations are lawful, and interpret complicated statutes about visas, refugee status, and credible fear interviews. Even experienced immigration lawyers sometimes struggle with the technical details. Putting military attorneys, skilled in courts-martial and battlefield law but inexperienced in immigration, into these roles creates a real risk of mistakes, unfair rulings, and human tragedies. Legal experts worry that vulnerable people could be wrongly deported simply because the person on the bench didn't have the right expertise. And there's more. At the heart of the legal debate is a law known as the Posse Comitatus Act, which prohibits the military from being used in domestic law enforcement. Now, defenders of the plan say immigration courts are administrative, not criminal, so Posse Comitatus doesn't apply. But critics argue that deportation decisions have quasi-criminal consequences. They can deprive someone of liberty and family unity. By embedding military personnel in what is fundamentally a law enforcement process, the government may be skirting the very spirit of that law. Think about the cultural clash here. Judges are supposed to be impartial, independent, and insulated from political pressure. Military officers, on the other hand, are trained to follow a strict chain of command. Mixing those two worlds could tilt immigration courts away from independence and toward executive control. And that's precisely what civil liberties groups fear, that this is less about clearing backlogs and more about consolidating power in the executive branch. If the administration can hand-pick temporary military judges, keep them on short-term contracts, and replace them at will, the message is clear. Rule the way we want, or we'll find someone else who will. There's also the danger of optics. Immigration courts are supposed to be civilian spaces. Imagine showing up to court, your entire future on the line, and finding that the judge presiding over your fate is wearing military insignia. The symbolism alone risks turning an already intimidating process into one that feels militarized and hostile. Legal scholars at the Brennan Center have already warned that this undermines trust, not only in the immigration system but in the military itself, which is supposed to remain apolitical and outside the realm of partisan fights. The practical side is equally concerning. Critics predict that the plan will backfire. Rather than reducing backlogs, it may actually increase them.
Why?
Because questionable rulings from inexperienced judges will be appealed, clogging the system even more. Lawyers and advocacy groups are already preparing to challenge the constitutionality of the program in federal court. If appeals pile up, the system gets slower, not faster, and the government ends up spending more time and money defending its policy than resolving cases. Stepping back, this plan fits a broader pattern. Over the past years, the Trump administration has repeatedly tried to blur the lines between the military, the courts, and immigration enforcement. From deploying troops to the border to using military aircraft for deportation flights, the use of military resources in domestic immigration policy has been escalating. This latest move is another step in that direction. For critics, it's not just about immigration, it's about executive overreach, about the White House using every lever possible to bend institutions to its will. And there's a deeper danger. If military lawyers can be reassigned as immigration judges today, what's to stop a future administration from placing them in other civilian judicial roles tomorrow? Once the precedent is set, the door is open. Today it's immigration. Tomorrow it could be labor disputes, civil rights cases, or national security hearings. That slippery slope is why constitutional scholars are raising red flags. So what happens next? Almost certainly, lawsuits. Advocacy groups are preparing to challenge the plan under posse comitatus, due process protections, and administrative law. Congress could also intervene, with some lawmakers already voicing alarm about the militarization of civilian courts. Within the judiciary, immigration judges themselves, those with years of experience, are warning that the system's credibility is on the line. Former judges have spoken out, saying this is a red line that risks breaking the system altogether. But perhaps the most important question is this: what about the people at the center of it all? The asylum seeker who fled political persecution, the migrant child waiting in a detention center, the family separated at the border. For them, the stakes are not theoretical. Their lives could hinge on the decision of a temporary military judge who may not fully understand the nuances of their case. Due process is not just a constitutional principle. It's the only safeguard that stands between individuals and injustice. This is why the debate over military judges is about more than just backlogs and bureaucracy. It's about what kind of country the United States wants to be. A country where justice is administered fairly and independently, or a country where courts become just another arm of executive power, filled at will with whoever will push through the agenda of the day. And so, the question comes to you. Is this a bold fix for a broken immigration system, or is it a dangerous experiment that threatens democracy itself? Should military lawyers, trained for war, be allowed to serve as judges in America's civilian immigration courts? Or is this a line that must not be crossed? If you found this deep dive eye-opening, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We'll continue to track every twist and turn of this story and bring you the geopolitical analysis that mainstream outlets too often overlook. And let us know in the comments. Do you think military lawyers can be fair immigration judges, or is this the beginning of a slippery slope toward militarized justice? Until next time, stay informed, stay critical, and stay engaged.